you, President Levin. I don't know if you know, but President Levin is also an athlete, a tennis player, a kayaker, hiker, and his support of women's athletics and athletics at Stanford is really critical. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. Welcome to Stanford. How's everyone this morning? Great. It's going to be an awesome day. It's going to be an awesome day. We've got to fire everyone up. Susan brought the rain. She came down from Oregon.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. But we actually like it. But it is an honor for us to be here this morning and to be part of the WuSci Performance Alliance first inaugural meeting, the farm meeting on the farm. And I want to thank Clara Wu and Joe Tsai and all of the people that are part of the WuSci Performance. This is just an awesome event today. Think of all the speakers that are going to be here. How many people have ever met a Nobel Prize winner? I mean, it's like, wow.
Incredible.
You know, it's the speakers and everyone that's here to get today to network. And we are people that still believe in research and science.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, it's very exciting to kick this off. And I want to give Susan a little bit more of an introduction. I've known Susan since she was 16 years old. She came to our basketball camp. She is one of the most competitive, driven, hardworking, compassionate people you could ever meet. And so I've known her and stayed in her life since she was 16. She still looks like she's 16, but you know, it's this. We're going to go back to when she was first at Stanford, and in her first week at Stanford, she came to Stanford as a freshman, and President Levin would be proud of me. Our first week with our student athletes, you know, we want to get going, we want to get practicing, but we have freshman orientation. So I told the team, we won't start until Thursday. This was a Sunday meeting, and so, you know, I'm going to give you 3 days off, and I said, you know, see you Thursday. And Susan turns to the team and says, see you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. in the weight room as an incoming freshman. So that's her introduction to Stanford and her team. So I want to go back with Susan and just say that, you know, when you think back, Susan, when you first came as a student athlete, what do you remember about being a student athlete at Stanford? And what are things that, you know, you can share with our audience today about just coming to Stanford?
Yeah, I think for me, wanting to come here was sort of wanting to be involved in a two-pronged approach to excellence. So it was, I want to be challenged by, you know, professors, people around me, and the academic side of things, and then also to come and play for a program like yours. I mean, it was, that to me was the best of both worlds and something that I couldn't wait to be a part of. And I think the other thing that I knew I was going to get when I came here was I was going to be coached. And it wasn't like, oh, here's your starting spot, you know, all this. It was like, you can come and earn it, and it's going to be great. And I knew that if I came here, I was going to grow as a person and as a player, and I was spot on.
Wow. Well, you know, Susan, we talked about this earlier, but both of us were attracted to Stanford because of the commitment to excellence. And this event today, excellence and leadership, and this event today is doubling down on both of those things. And you know, the opportunity, Susan was a great student and obviously a great athlete. No one, you know, I don't know if I would be afraid to put Kate against Susan on a one-on-one drill because they kill each other, but you know, they're both so competitive.
I have a funny story about that, actually.
Yeah.
My very first day of practice, when we brought in practice players, Kate was one of the practice players because she was here during school. And so, okay, I'm guarding Kate, here we go. Like 5 seconds into it, I had a bloody nose. Like 5 seconds in. So that was my introduction to Kate.
And when I was foolish enough to practice with the team, I got a bloody nose too. So, yeah. Well, Susan, unfortunately, and President Levin referenced this, unfortunately you had some injuries, and maybe you could talk about kind of how those injuries in some ways shaped your experience at Stanford.
Yeah, so I arrived at Stanford. I think the way it started was sort of as a dream. I was starting, playing, all the things, having a great experience, and I think it was like my 9th game maybe my freshman year. I went up for a layup, got tackled, actually like tore my ACL, rehabbed for a full year, came back, played I think maybe 2 games, 1.5, something like that, and I had a cadaver graft. It stretched, it didn't take, and so then I got to do the whole thing again. And so that was sort of my moment of like, I remember sitting in the doctor's office actually where they were like, so you should consider that this might not be a thing. Like this might be the end, you know? And so I think for me, that was like okay, like bet moment, like great, let's go. And so I did my first rehab here. I did my second rehab with a woman named Lisa Giannani, and I don't know if she's here yet. We invited her today in the city. And so that was sort of in me trying to find my way out of that injury, you know, that injury streak. I sort of in some ways found my way. And what I do now is I work with elite athletes, and this is very much so, you know, a part of the game. And I think going through that process myself and sort of the resiliency that I gained and sort of coming out on the other side stronger is something that I carry with me and I use in my work on a daily basis, kind of helping these elite athletes through whatever hardship they're going through. And that toughness, I think it's something that once you've gone through it and you are back on the other side, that's something that no one can take away from you. And I think it does apply to every single facet of what I do.
So what, maybe Susan, what would you tell your younger self now that you know now, obviously being, you know, further along in your career that maybe you didn't know then, or even what maybe some people don't know now?
Yeah, so I think probably the biggest thing I've learned transitioning from playing into my professional career is the importance of recovery. And I think my identity has been like work hard, work harder, all of those things. And now I understand, and it's something we're again using daily with what I do in my work, is you actually get more out of that hard work when you find these appropriate recovery periods and you program that in, like that's a part of the plan. And that was not something that I did when I was an athlete, and I wish I could go back and talk to myself about that and utilize that. And so that's something that with these athletes we're working with now, we work really, really hard. That's part of my approach. Like we are working hard, but then we're also recovering like we mean it. And so I think that's the thing that I wish I could go back and change for myself. And then also it's something that I know as more research comes out, we're going to be able to be more detailed instead of guessing. We're going to have more certainty around that. And so I'm excited to kind of see, as the research is done on females, how much more specificity we're able to find in terms of when we're prescribing recovery processes, what that looks like.
Well, one of my mentors at Stanford, the person actually that recruited me to Stanford, was a gentleman named Brooks Johnson. And for those of you in track and field, you know the name Brooks Johnson. He was the head coach of the Olympic team in '84 in LA. And one of the things, we would train with the track team a little bit. He would help us. And he had some, you know, just really interesting programs that we did. But one of the things he told me was, he said, Tara, you can always tell people how much you work, like if you do a clinic, but never tell them how much you rest. And I think that that was something that I felt like we always played our best at the end of the season because our team was well rested and, you know, excited to play, as much maybe mentally as physically.
Yeah.
But you know, you mentioned the ACLs, and I know that the next session is about ACLs. And as a basketball coach, I think those three letters have been like my least favorite letters of the alphabet. And you know, we've had, unfortunately, one year we had 2 women that had an ACL injury within 15 minutes of basketball time. One was at the end of the game, one was in the beginning of a practice. And we were the first at the time, we're the only women's team to ever be a #1 seed to lose to a 16. And now I don't think after we had those injuries we were #1, and nor was the other team 16, but the injuries were just devastating. And I think that we've made some progress in that you know, field, and not having as many ACLs based on the research that we've known and shared.
Yeah, I think the research that's being done is absolutely critical. We need to understand like this kind of multifactorial rationale as to why this is happening, what we can do to help prevent it. The one thing I am seeing though, this is something that we were going to discuss, is sort of connecting the dots between research that's being done and what the lay population is receiving. And I can speak about this directly. So I work with some really elite athletes currently, mostly in the basketball and soccer space. And I also have 2 young daughters. And so these young daughters are also, you know, playing on club teams and such. And what they are given from their teams compared to what's being done at the top levels with what we're doing with their pros and such, the discrepancy is incredible, actually. It's at this level, you know, if you think of a game day, the warm-up routines, the intricate, individualized approach everyone's taking to their warm-ups, it couldn't be further from what's happening here. Here, it's throw your bag in the corner. There's maybe 90 seconds on the clock. You're going to do a couple layups, and you're going to play full speed. And so that, to me, is how are we missing the connection between the same sport, same goals, same everything, but the way we're approaching it is so different. And then we also see that this is a group, especially as they get 13 to 18, that's where that injury really comes into play. We're not using the research we currently have. It's not being implemented down here. And then we need that much more research on this specific female population, right? And so that, to me, is something that the more research that comes out, great, but also how are we sort of connecting both sides together and helping these younger athletes who now have this, these amazing sport opportunities to look forward to? How are we helping them understand how to care for their bodies, create that infrastructure within themselves? And so that, to me, is something that I think this group in here would be excellent. How can we translate better? You know, that to me is one of the things that I'd like to see happen.
Well, Susan, one of the things that we have a saying with our team, every disappointment is a blessing. And one of how would you describe the blessing of your injuries? Maybe someone you met in the training room?
Yes, yeah, true, good point. So my husband was actually the center on the men's team here, and he had broken his navicular bone. He's a 7-footer, and I had torn my ACL, and so we just kind of found ourselves in there. And so long story short, we've been married for almost 25 years. We have 4 kids together. I am almost officially the shortest now. Our youngest is a 5th grader. And that, to me, has been that was my blessing for sure.
Well, I'm going to transition a little bit with Susan to when she graduated, had a psychology major with a lot of emphasis in human biology, but then came back as our sports performance person working with our team. And one of the things that really, again, Susan just kind of kept me on my toes and also had me laughing. We had a young lady on our team who one of my assistant coaches, when she wanted to come back for a 5th year, one of my assistant coaches said, she'll be on our team over my dead body. And so I was like, okay. And so she would be working out at one end, and then I see her go to the other end, and then I see her on the bike, and I'd go over and talk to her and say, Michaela, what's going on? Well, I got thrown out of this end, I got thrown out of this end. So she just, when we were recruiting her, she's very talented, but her grandfather said to me, good luck with this one. She's not a hard worker. So, we battled back and forth for about 4 years, and then along comes Susan in the summer, and I was gone recruiting. And I come back and I said to Susan, no, who's really working hard in the weight room for you? And she goes, Michaela. I'm like, well, Michaela's this one. Are you sure? And she goes, yes. And so I think Susan's strength is not only the fact that she's incredibly intelligent and hardworking, but she connects so well with student athletes. And this young lady went on to go from basically going in and barely playing to being the MVP of the regional tournament here at Stanford, wearing the net around her neck, so proud. And she never would have done it without Susan's help and without Susan's being there for her. So, it's true, Susan. Susan's very humble. But when you think of working with, you have the Athletes Blueprint, which is your business. How do you work on connecting with the student athletes that you're working with? And you use the word puzzle. How does that fit into your thought?
Well, thank you for that. I don't know that that's true. Michaela was actually an incredible player, and I was just lucky to get to know her in that way. But the way we look at each athlete is sort of their own unique puzzle. So, I'll just use some examples. Like Stewie is very different than Paige is very different than Kelsey, given their age, their injury history, their position, all the different things, right? And so how we put together that puzzle of each of those unique athletes is different, but sort of the puzzle pieces might still be the same. So it's like we're going to have the strength piece, the recovery piece, all the different puzzles, the nutrition, this one's a mom, so we're working on her pelvic floor, and her timing is a big piece of that puzzle, right? How we're putting that puzzle together and sort of creating this comprehensive plan for them that they then carry out, whatever team they're on, whether they're with the national team this week or they're with their W team or their unrivaled team. We really like to have continuity and consistency in terms of sort of how we're prescribing for them, and it's not like they're transferring from this strength coach to that strength coach. It's one person the whole time, and they have their own plan. So that's how we're looking at it that way. And then I think in terms of connecting with these athletes, that to me is actually the best part of my job. I get to sort of be in their foxhole. I'm stealing one of your analogies, but I get to be in their foxhole with them and help them navigate the great parts, the parts that are really hard, the situations that aren't great, all the different things that come with being a professional athlete. Like that's the best part of my job that I get to do. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you already you talked a little bit about maybe the disconnect between the research that's already done and maybe the youth coaches, and I would also say college coaches too, and high school coaches. Not how can we better connect? What maybe could this group do and be part of the connection process? You connect with the athletes individually, but how do we connect the research to these coaches and the trainers and the sports performance people that are out there that are actually the practitioners?
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges, and one of the things, if we talk about the youth level, it's not necessarily, there might be that one really motivated kid who's going to go out and like search for the next thing that they want to be working on, or the one who's going to individually go find it with their parents because that's what they're asking for. But really, I think it comes down to the coaches and educating the coaches and making sure that they buy into what you're asking for and understand the importance of it, as opposed to like just, okay, kids, show up warmed up and let's hop out there. Like that just is never going to work in that sense. And so I think it has to be something that the coaches deem important and they include it in part of their whole practice plan. And we're starting to do that in some ways with some of these individualized teams and programs in high schools and such. And it's like, it really works when the coaches are about the details and then they're trying to understand what we're looking for. And then they're then teaching it to their teams as opposed to it having it be something separate and different. That to me is where real change will take place in terms of implementation. But I actually want to go back and talk a little bit about the connection piece. And I think from talking to Scott, this is something that hopefully will come from this day for some of the people in this room, and that's just mentorship. I know Scott has done an excellent job leading and creating this program and starting it, and he has a ton of young researchers here and people who are contributing to this program. I came to Stanford knowing that I was going to be coached, but I didn't fully understand like the mentor that I would have for my life. And Tara has been someone who college coach. I then worked for her again. She's at my wedding. She's been, I've been to your cabin in Minnesota. She's been a part of like my big life moments in that sense, and still is to this day someone who, if I have something important, I'm going to talk to her about it, right? And so I'm hopeful for this group here, everybody being together in a room, you find someone who, in that way, helps mentor you in your next steps. And I know that was one of the goals for Scott today, is to create like this community, and that's certainly something that I found when I was at Stanford along those lines.
That's awesome. Well, I guess the last point I have that I wanted you to comment for everyone on is, what do you wish that we would do research on? What are things that you say, wow, I wish I had the research numbers on this? Is it nutrition? Is it Achilles injuries? Is it ACL? What would it be?
The list is so long in terms of things that we need on female bodies specifically. I think that's truly what I know in my daily practice. We're using research all the time in these recovery protocols we're creating, these performance profiling, workouts that we're doing, but none of this is done specifically on female bodies. It's all on male bodies, right? And so while that's a great starting point, what we're currently doing to create additional specificity around this is what's ideal and optimal for females, that to me is the next step. And I know a major focus and goal for the people in this room. And it's not only along the lines of performance, it's how does breath work intimately affect females in a way that doesn't quite work for males? What are we doing with pelvic health prior to being an adult that puts them in a place that's better off after they've had a child instead of waiting until afterwards for pelvic therapy? I think that's actually one of the things that we found. We work with a lot of moms. We've just happened to have, I want to say 5 or 6 in our program that have recently had babies and returned to play. And the importance of that and the difficulty we've had in trying to find research related to females coming back from childbirth is astounding, truthfully. And so that then leads me to say, okay, what could we have been doing prior to this to help them be in a better spot? Just like, before you go into ACL surgery, you want to make sure that quad is as strong as possible. What could I have done previously to help them be in a better position after? And so I think all of the research that lends itself towards female specificity, that's the next step for these elite female athletes. But it's also for the younger ones coming up who aren't ever going to be elite female athletes, right? Like the girls who are playing basketball who, if we can create a protocol that puts them in a better position, they don't tear their ACL and they keep playing for another 5 years as opposed to stopping after that happens the first time because they can never quite get back. That to me is sort of one of the main focuses of what research in this space can do. It's like, yes, it's for the elite athletes, but it's also for the ones who their movement is their friend group. It's the people they play with, all of those things. And so I think that it's sort of that two-pronged approach. It's like, yes, we want it for the elite of the elite, but we also want it for the ones who movement is the best part of their day. How can we keep them doing that longer? So.
Well, we're finishing up here, but I just wanted to say that working with Susan, I'm still picking her brain. When I work walking over here, I love to water ski, and I'm over 70, and so
she's killing it. What she's doing.
I had a DEXA scan. I'm like running my, I don't want to have a fracture. So let's keep doing research for not just the young people, but you're all going to be 70 someday if you're lucky. So thank you very much. Thank you, Susan.
Perfect. Thank you, Tara.